Mason arrived on Monday morning the way a weary traveler returns from a long journey, not quite healed, not quite whole, but trying to pretend he was fine. The office smelled faintly of burnt coffee and old printer ink, strangely comforting, strangely sad. He slipped into his corner desk, dropped his worn-out backpack onto the floor, and let out a quiet exhale that he didn't realize he'd been holding. He clicked on his monitor, ready to survive another routine morning, when something colorful caught his eye. A sticky note. Perfectly centered on his keyboard like it was left with intention. He frowned, leaning closer. In tiny, playful handwriting were the words, "Your smile called. It wants its job back." A little sunshine doodle beamed from the corner like it was personally rooting for him. He blinked once, twice. Then he laughed, softly, unexpectedly, like the sound came from a part of him he thought had shut down months ago. It wasn't a big laugh or a dramatic one, just a gentle breath of joy that loosened his shoulders. He looked around. No one stared at him. No one looked guilty. The office hummed with the usual morning energy, people shuffling papers, typing half awake, sipping too hot Starbucks. He picked up the note and flipped it over, blank on the back. "No way this is for me," he muttered under his breath. "Probably Tasha messing around." But something about it felt personal. He placed it beside his monitor, straightened it carefully, too carefully for something he claimed wasn't a big deal, and continued working. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted back to that little sunshine doodle, and every time, his chest warmed just a little more. He didn't know it yet, but that single sticky note would become the beginning of something that quietly, tenderly rearranged his entire life. The next morning, Mason walked in feeling a tiny spark of anticipation he couldn't explain. He wouldn't have admitted it out loud, but he checked his desk before he even took his coat off. And there it was, a new sticky note. "Drink water. Hydrated men make better life choices." A crooked smile tugged at his lips. He hadn't even drunk his first coffee yet, and someone was already judging his hydration levels. He loved it. This anonymous someone didn't just write jokes. They noticed things. They cared in a way that was soft and strangely specific, like they were paying attention to details most people missed. He pocketed the note and pretended not to feel lighter. Meanwhile, 3 desks away, Lena sat with her headphones on, pretending to review spreadsheets while secretly watching her out of the corner of her eye. The first note had been an accident, a scribbled reminder she never intended for him to see. But when she came in the day after and saw how he smiled at it, something inside her shifted. For months, she had watched him enter the office a little dimmer each week, like he was losing pieces of himself he didn't know how to get back. She was too shy to speak to him, too quiet, too invisible. But she could write. She could leave a joke, a nudge, a tiny kindness. And so she did. Each note grew bolder. "Stand up straight. Someone out there is rooting for you today. You survived Monday. Trophy unlocked. Your caffeine intake frightens me. Consider water." Mason began showing up earlier just to see if another one appeared. And Lena, heart pounding, would slip into the office 10 minutes before him, praying she wouldn't get caught. She never imagined he'd spend the whole morning smiling at his desk, a quiet, private smile meant only for the stranger who wrote to him in secret. By week 4, Mason was fully invested in solving the mystery. He held the latest note, a bright purple one with a little doodle of a dancing stick figure, and approached Tasha. "Be honest," he said, waving it in front of her. "Is this you?" Tasha raised a brow. "Baby, I barely like my actual job. You think I'm out here writing inspirational sticky notes?" "Someone is," he grumbled. "Well, whoever she is," she leaned back in her chair judgmentally. She's got great handwriting, and she's obsessed with you." Mason nearly choked. Tasha didn't stop. "She's either got a crush or she's deeply invested in your hydration habits." He groaned and walked away before she could tease him more. Next, he asked Michael from accounting. Michael blinked at him like he'd just been accused of arson. "I don't even own sticky notes," Michael said defensively. "I'm a digital minimalist." That clue went nowhere. Meanwhile, Lena had a problem. Mason kept watching everyone suspiciously, like he was Sherlock Holmes in an office chair. She found herself ducking behind cubicle walls or adjusting her glasses to avoid eye contact. But the worst part? He thought she disliked him. Whenever he spoke in meetings, she froze up, not because she hated him, but because liking someone quietly is one of the hardest secrets to hold. He noticed every flinch, every time she stiffened when he walked by, and misread it all, which made her notes softer, kinder, more careful. She wrote things like, "You're doing better than you think. You matter more than you realize. The world is quieter when you're hurting. I hope today feels a little lighter." She never signed them. She just prayed they landed the way she meant them to. And Mason? He carried them all in his wallet, folded, worn, loved in silence. He still had no idea the girl who avoided him like he carried the plague was the same girl who wrote to him like she carried his heart in her hands. The morning Mason decided to write back, he showed up earlier than he ever had. The office was still waking up, printers yawning to life, lights buzzing in sleepy flickers, a lone janitor humming down the hall. Mason sat at his desk with a yellow sticky note in his palm, tapping a pen anxiously against it. He wasn't a man who shared his feelings easily, but whoever this mystery writer was, they had opened a small door in him, gently and consistently, until he could no longer ignore the urge to speak back. His handwriting wasn't nearly as neat as theirs, but he tried. "Thank you. Whoever you are, thank you." He stared at the note longer than necessary. Words felt too small to express what these anonymous messages had done for him, but it was a start. He stuck it right where she usually placed hers, then walked away like he'd just committed a crime. Across the room, Lena slipped into her seat, carefully avoiding any path that might cross Mason. Her throat tightened. She pressed her fingertips to it, reading it slowly, like the words were something fragile and rare. Her heart fluttered painfully. He wasn't just reading the notes, he was receiving them. Her reply that day was softer than the rest. "Rough days happen. You survived. I'm proud of you for showing up." She left it on his keyboard and retreated quickly, cheeks flushed, palms sweating. When Mason saw it, he touched the paper like it was more than stationery, like it was human connection in disguise. From then on, they began talking through sticky notes like two strangers leaning out of windows in the dead of night. He wrote, "Do you leave these for other people, or am I special?" She replied, "Don't let it go to your head." A doodle of a lopsided crown sat beside it. He grinned for an entire hour after reading it. Their conversations became the only part of his day he looked forward to with childlike excitement. He started arriving early. She started arriving earlier. He caught himself smiling at blank walls, just thinking about what she might say next. For Lena, every note she wrote felt like both a confession and a shield, intimate enough to be real, anonymous enough to feel safe. In her tiny apartment, she kept all the reply notes in a shoebox he didn't know existed. A shoebox she pulled out at night to reread the way some people reread their favorite poetry. Mason, on the other hand, kept every note of hers tucked inside his wallet like a secret talisman. They were two people falling toward each other, gently, quietly, without ever hearing the other say a word. The universe, or perhaps the office manager, decided to complicate Lena's life by pairing her and Mason on a major project. That meant long hours, shared spreadsheets, quiet moments that stretched into meaningful ones. It meant sitting side by side while pretending her heart wasn't trying to escape through her ribs. The first evening they worked late together, the sun dimmed behind the windows, turning the office gold. Lena sat stiffly, her fingers flying across the keyboard, refusing to look directly at him. But Mason, he had no idea how much effort she was putting into appearing normal. He talked easily about his favorite coffee shop, his disaster of an apartment, the time he burnt pasta because he forgot water was required. When he spoke, he didn't demand her attention. He offered it gently, like an open door. Slowly, she relaxed. He noticed her little habits, how she tapped her pencil exactly twice before writing something, how she whispered numbers under her breath when solving equations. "You do math out loud," he teased one night, smiling. Her head snapped up. No, I don't." "You do. It's cute." She froze. He didn't notice the weight of his words, but she did. Silence lingered on the edge of becoming something delicate. When they worked, their elbows brushed occasionally. Each time, she jolted slightly, while he pretended not to notice the charge that moved through him. He found himself scanning her desk for clues. Did she have sticky notes? What color did she use? Did her handwriting match? But every time she caught him glancing, she looked away so quickly he questioned himself again. He assumed she didn't like him.
She assumed he would never guess. And still, he smiled at her. And still, she wrote for him. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that felt heavier than it should. Lena was gathering her things near the end of the day, hands trembling from nerves she couldn't explain. She'd written a note earlier that morning that felt a little too vulnerable. "Be kind to yourself today. You deserve gentleness too." She worried he would think it was too intimate, too revealing, too much. Lost in her whirlpool of thoughts, she accidentally knocked her planner off the desk. Paper scattered, sticky notes fluttering like soft confetti onto the carpet. Before she could react, Mason bent down to help her. His fingers landed on a pale blue sticky note with her handwriting, one she'd written for him but never delivered. His eyes widened slightly. Her heart stopped. She snatched it from his hand so fast he barely saw the words. He blinked. "Sorry, I didn't mean to invade your space." "It's fine," she whispered, already shoving the note deep into her bag, face burning. He watched her, confusion flooding his features. Why did she look embarrassed? Why did she treat him like she was afraid of what he'd think? Her reaction lingered in his mind long after she hurried out of the office. He sat at his desk later that evening, drumming his fingers. She'd been nervous. Too nervous for something small. Was it possible? No, he dismissed the thought. The quiet girl who avoided him wasn't the same person who wrote such bright, lively notes, right? Still, the more he thought about it, the more a fragile piece of hope tried to bloom. The morning of the big presentation arrived sooner than Mason would have liked. He hadn't slept well. His thoughts had been tangled for days, not just about the project, but about the notes, about Lena, about everything that felt both close and far away. He walked into the conference room early, flipping open his presentation folder to review his talking points. A sticky note slipped out. But this one was different. It was blank. No doodle, no joke, no encouragement, just empty space. He stared at it, confused. Then, instinctively, his eyes lifted across the room. Lena stood near the window, pretending to read the agenda packet. Her fingers twisted the edges of the paper. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes flicked toward him, just once, then away again. The realization hit him quietly, tenderly, like a soft gasp inside her chest. The blank note wasn't empty. It was a message. You already know what to do. You don't need words this time. Just breathe. The meeting started. People filed in. Voices rose and fell around him. But Mason's focus was elsewhere. Every time he felt his nerve spike, he touched the blank note tucked beneath the folder flap. Every time he looked up, he caught Lena watching him with eyes full of worry she tried and failed to hide. When he finished presenting, applause rippled through the room. Compliments followed. Tasha nudged him playfully on the way out. But none of it mattered, not compared to the silent conversation he'd just had through a blank piece of paper. As soon as the room emptied, he walked straight toward her. She froze when she saw him coming, as if she already knew. He held up the blank note. "Was this you?" Her breath hitched. Her fingers curled into her palm. She didn't look away this time. "It was supposed to say, 'You're okay,'" she whispered, but my hand was shaking. The room felt impossibly still. Mason stepped a little closer, just enough for her to feel his warmth, not enough to frighten her. "You've been talking to me for months," he said softly. She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for it to continue this long. I thought it would help once, then twice, then—" Her shoulders trembled with the weight of her own truth. "I didn't want you to feel alone." He looked at her, really looked, and saw the quiet courage it took to say those words. What she didn't know was that she had already changed everything. For a moment, neither of them moved. The office felt impossibly quiet, like even the air was listening, waiting. Mason held the blank note between them, his voice gentle. "You've been talking to me without saying a word." Lena pressed her lips together, her breath trembling. She wasn't used to being seen. Not really. Not fully. And now, here he was, looking at her like the smallest parts of her mattered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to interfere." "Interfere?" He blinked in disbelief. "Lena, your notes kept me going." She shook her head, cheeks flushed, uncertainty clouding her features. "You don't understand. I didn't know where the line was between being kind and overstepping. I wasn't sure if it was welcome or strange or—" "Strange?" His smile was soft, affectionate. "Lena, I looked forward to them like they were little pieces of sunshine taped to my day." Her breath faltered. He reached into his wallet, slowly, so she wouldn't recoil, and pulled out 3 folded, faded sticky notes. The paper was creased, edges softened from being handled over and over. "I kept every single one," he said. Her eyes widened, shimmering with something she tried to blink away. Relief, disbelief, something she didn't have a name for. She ran a thumb over the note he held out. Her handwriting stared back at her. Gentle, encouraging, hers. "I didn't think anyone would care about something so small," she murmured. "Small things saved me," he replied. Then, softer, "You saved me." That broke something open inside her, something quiet, something aching. She'd spent so long blending into the edges of the room, certain her presence was forgettable, certain her voice didn't matter. But he saw the one thing she thought she had hidden perfectly, her heart. Her fingers trembled as she spoke. "I only left the first note by accident, but when I saw your smile, I realized you hadn't smiled like that in a while." He swallowed, emotion threading through his voice. "I hadn't." "I just wanted you to feel less alone," she admitted. He stepped closer, close enough that their unspoken feelings hovered between them like a fragile ribbon. "You did," he said. "And now I want to know you, the person behind the notes." Her breath hitched at the vulnerability woven into his tone. This was no longer a mystery to solve, no longer a game of anonymous kindness. This was something deeper, something tender, something alive. They moved to the quieter corner of the office, the unofficial meeting spot where people often hid from the world for a few minutes of peace. It felt fitting. They had both been hiding for months. Lena sat first, smoothing her palms against her knees as if bracing herself. Mason sat across from her, elbows on his thighs, leaning forward with quiet attentiveness. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit he'd come to adore, and took a slow breath. "I know I seem distant," she began. "I'm not good at talking or initiating conversations or being brave in the ways other people are." "You've written more to me than anyone has spoken to me in years," he said softly. That made her stop. Her eyes lifted to his. Something warm flickered there, something she wasn't sure she deserved, but wanted more than anything. He continued, voice low. "When you wrote those notes, I felt seen at a time when I was disappearing into myself." Her chest tightened. She had felt invisible for so long, and yet she'd helped someone else feel seen without ever saying a word. They sat in silence for a moment, not awkward silence, but the kind that lets two people breathe each other in carefully. "Do you want to know something?" she asked quietly. "Always." "I wrote the notes I needed to hear too." He nodded slowly, understanding blooming across his face. Softness settled over them like a warm blanket. He leaned back slightly. "I thought you didn't like me," he admitted. Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "What? Why would you think that?" "Every time I walked by, you stiffened. You wouldn't look at me. You avoided conversations." Her face flushed crimson. "That wasn't dislike. That was embarrassment and nerves and—" she hesitated, voice shrinking, "and liking someone too much." The air shifted. He felt the words land inside him like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Lena," he whispered. She covered her face for a second, mortified. "I can't believe I just said that out loud." He gently pulled her hands down, but didn't hold them, just kept them open, available, like an unspoken invitation. "I'm glad you said it," he murmured. Her throat tightened. She didn't speak. So he did. "I liked you long before I knew you were the one leaving the notes." Her heart stopped. Her gaze flickered to his, wide and trembling with hope she tried to deny. "You did?" she whispered. He nodded. "You have this quiet way about you, not in a shy way, more like you see things the rest of us miss. You move through the world thoughtfully." Then, with a careful breath, "And I noticed you, noticing me, even when you tried to hide it." Her cheeks warmed. "I wasn't very good at hiding." "No," he said with a soft laugh, "you really weren't." They both laughed quietly, not loud, not showy, just warm, genuine laughter that loosened the invisible thread between them. A year passed with the kind of ease that comes when two people finally stop pretending they don't care. Their relationship bloomed gently, beautifully. Morning coffees shared in the office kitchen, whispered jokes during meetings, handwritten notes still left for each other, even without the anonymity. But Lena never stopped writing them, and Mason never stopped saving them. On the first anniversary of the day he found that very first sunshine doodle, Lena walked into the office expecting nothing unusual. Her hair fell in soft waves, her tote bag swung lightly at her side, and her heart felt full in a way she never imagined it could. She reached her desk and froze. Sitting on her keyboard was a sticky note, her handwriting style, her doodle style, but definitely not her paper, not her pen. "Can I share your life? Check yes or definitely yes." She blinked. Her breath caught. The world softened at the edges. When she turned, Mason stood behind her, his heart in his eyes, his smile quiet and steady. In his hands was a small ring box, opened just slightly, like he was nervous to show the whole thing all at once. "I thought it was fitting," he said lightly. "You asked me to smile. I'm asking you to stay." Her hand lifted to her mouth as emotion overwhelmed her. Tears gathered, not in grief, but in gratitude, for him, for the notes, for the strange, gentle path that led them here. She couldn't speak at first, but she didn't need to. She stepped toward him, one small step that sealed everything between them. "Yes," she whispered. Then, with a trembling laugh, "Definitely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger as the office buzzed quietly around them, unaware that two lives had just quietly intertwined forever. Their story didn't begin with a grand gesture. It began with a sticky note, a small kindness written by a woman who never thought her words mattered, and a man who needed them more than he knew. A love built gently, softly, sticky note by sticky note, until it became something permanent, something sacred, something worth saying yes to.